Aw, you know what's sicker than NFL Week 7 predictions? Me. I am sick. Grossi Posse Packer Nation. Welcome to an episode of Backcast, the podcast where you don't have to be Packers fan, but it sure does help. I'm your host, Tom. Yep, we're going to make it through predictions, and then I'm going to go lie down and potentially die at Grossi. And today, we are going to be going through each Week 7 game. And listen, I don't want to brag here, but last week, I went a respectable 11-4. That's totally fine. A 64-28 record on the season, which means that out of the 27,000 people that are in the Grossi Posse Pick'em League, I am ranked 200th, which I'm pretty sure, based on all my years of doing this, that's the best record I've ever had through the first 7 weeks. However, there are 3 folks tied for first place with a 70-22 record in the Pick'em League. I am only 6 games behind, and with the Week 7 slate, which there's a lot of games that could go either way, I'm sure I'm going to be worse off starting next week. Starting things off, we go to the Geriatric Bowl between the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Cincinnati Bengals. The Steelers, oh man, who would have thought, huh? The Pittsburgh Steelers sitting atop the AFC North. Things are looking good. The rest of the AFC North lost again this past week, so you just gotta hope that Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers don't get too comfy with that divisional lead.
I love these lazy Saturdays.
It's Wednesday, Homer.
Work!
But everything has been going right for the Steelers. Not only are they atop the AFC North, the rest of their division rivals, well, yeah, they look like me right now, which is not great. And on top of that, their defense is getting better. And while Jaylen Warren hasn't had his breakout game, they've been able to incorporate Darnell Washington in the pass game more, which I have been waiting for years. And when guys like Kenneth Gainwell get an opportunity, they've been doing really well on the ground. And it just seems like the Steelers with Aaron Rodgers, who's getting the ball out quickly, are operating an efficient offense with a strong defense. And hey, being a balanced team in the NFL, it's provided some success. They're taking on the Cincinnati Bengals, who looked better with Joe Flacco under center as they were able to claw their way back into that game late in the fourth quarter. Jamar Chase had a phenomenal touchdown grab. But the problem with the Cincinnati Bengals is what it's been all season. 1, they don't have Joe Burrow. 2, Chase Brown doesn't have over 50 rushing yards in a single game this season. And on top of that, their offensive line, is not very good. Throw Trey Hendrickson getting hurt this past Sunday on top of things, and the Cincinnati Bengals, it has been a painful season. And now taking on the Steelers, whose defense is looking good, the Bengals pass rush is not doing so great. Yeah, this may be a pretty long day for Cincinnati. Now, I will say this would be very in line for the Steelers to have this phenomenal performance over the past few weeks and then lose to the Bengals on Thursday Night Football. However, even though it is being played in Cincinnati and Joe Flacco can get the ball out quickly like you saw this past Sunday, I gotta go with the Steelers to get the win here. They just seem like a way more complete team. And while the Bengals might make this competitive, I just gotta go with Aaron Rodgers one more time, and this will be the last time we see him until he faces off against Green Bay. Following that, this should actually be a pretty damn good game. You got the LA Rams taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Rams, they were able to take care of business against the Baltimore Ravens. And no, it wasn't the prettiest, but their defense was able to lock in. But unfortunately, even though the Rams got a win, Rams fans had to watch Puka go down.
You gotta get up. We gotta go home.
And while Puka Nacua is expected to miss some time, I'm curious to see what this offense is going to look like going forward. The Ravens were able to put up a pretty good defensive performance against the Rams this past Sunday, and they didn't allow them to blow them out completely. While I'm sure Rams fans would have enjoyed more points against the Ravens, they were not only able to get it done, but their run game has been pretty consistent throughout the year. On top of that, Matthew Stafford is playing well, and even though Puka Nacua is banged up right now, Devontae Adams is still a really damn good receiver. And they're going to be taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars, who suffered a loss against the Seattle Seahawks this past Sunday. The Jaguars have been having a really nice season, coming off a big Monday night win against the Kansas City Chiefs. we thought, oh man, maybe they're going to start to turn a corner. Unfortunately for the Jaguars, Trevor Lawrence got absolutely obliterated behind that offensive line. The Seahawks pass rush was phenomenal this past Sunday. And one of the things that has made the Jaguars so great this season is their run game. And Travis Etienne just could not get things going. Now, heading into this game, I think it's going to be really close, and I think it could go down to either team. However, I think it's going to come down to which team can establish the run. And while the Rams have a middle-of-the-road run defense, and that could allow Travis Etienne to have a pretty nice game, they have a pretty damn good secondary right now, as they're ranked as one of the top passing defenses in the league, while the Jaguars are near the bottom. So because of that, I'm actually going to go with the Rams to get the win here. If Matthew Stafford's able to air it out, if Devontae Adams is able to have a big game, I think the Rams should be able to come away with the win, especially if they're able to get pressure on Trevor Lawrence like the Seahawks were this past Sunday. So because of that, I'm going with LA to get the win in Florida. But the Jaguars, who knows? Maybe they got a little roar left in them. Following that, you got the New Orleans Saints taking on the Chicago Bears. The Saints, listen, if you could say anything about New Orleans right now, they are fighting. They are a scrappy team. Unfortunately, that's not leading to a whole lot of wins. I have to say, though, about New Orleans is that Spencer Rattler has been playing pretty darn well throughout this season, besides that one game a few weeks ago that we keep alluding to. But ultimately, it's just a lack of talent, I think, that the Saints possess that's not allowing them to put up more points, and they just seem like one of those middle-of-the-road teams this year. However, they're taking on the Chicago Bears, who have won 3 straight games. After a messy game this past Monday in the rain, they forced 3 turnovers, even though one was gifted by Jaden Daniels, and they are one of the best turnover differential defenses in the league right now. And so at this moment, the Bears, things are looking pretty good. And since they're playing the Saints, we all know who's going to lead the Bears to victory this Sunday.
To the Pope-mobile.
But talking about Chicago, their defense definitely looks better. Those first few weeks in the season, they definitely looked like they were getting gassed as their offense just kept on going 3 and out. And while Caleb Williams, according to Troy Aikman, had the worst game ever on Monday, Caleb Williams has been playing pretty well. Their offensive line has prevented a ton of sacks, as Caleb Williams was getting destroyed behind that offensive line last year. And ultimately, for the Chicago Bears, things look to be trending in the right direction, especially if they're able to get DeAndre Swift running like they were able to do this past Monday against the Commanders. I like the Bears to get the win here. I think this could be a really competitive game because you have 2 scrappy teams, but I'm going to give the Bears the edge here, being played in Chicago in the elements outside. So Chicago gets the win, which would be their 4th straight win. And oh no, are we going to have to start taking the Bears more seriously? Hopefully not. Following that, you got the Miami Dolphins taking on the Cleveland Browns. And I'm sure that both of these teams are just trying to convince themselves that everything is fine.
Everything's under control. Situation normal.
Who is this? What's your operating number?
The Dolphins were able to almost pull off an upset victory against the Chargers last week. However, turnovers and that atrocious defense really just prevented them from doing anything. Of course, you have Tyreek Hill, who is out for the year, and I love Jalen Waddle, and Devin Achane is having a phenomenal season so far. But ultimately, that defense is just, there is nothing there. They cannot stop a cold right now, and that is going to be problematic if they look to do anything of note this season. They're going to be taking on the Cleveland Browns, who got walloped by the Steelers this past Sunday. Dylan Gabriel, who has looked fine these past couple of weeks, he was not able to get anything really going. Judkins had a really tough time moving the ball against the Steelers defense. And ultimately for the Cleveland Browns, of course, they have a really good defense, but their offense, it's kind of just a mixed bag. However, good news, they're going up against one of the worst defenses in the league right now in the Miami Dolphins. And so Judkins, who had a nice string of weeks put together, might have a breakout game this week against Miami. So because of that, and I believe in the Browns defense just a whole lot more than I do in the Dolphins, I'm going to go with Cleveland to get a win here, which means they would get their 2nd win of the season, meaning that the Packers, who are the Browns' only win this season, would finally stop being the laughingstock of the NFC North meme war. I see you. So because of that, Browns get their win. Dolphins, I'm so sorry. Then you got the New England Patriots taking on the Tennessee Titans. The Patriots. everything's turning up New England. It seems like the evil empire is starting to rebuild the second Death Star, as Drake May is looking so damn good. He's been dropping dimes for the past few weeks. The defense is playing solid. When Ramondre Stevenson doesn't fumble, it's a great day. And the Patriots have just been a really solid team with an ascending quarterback who they're helping protect this season. They have Stephon Diggs to throw the ball to. And yeah, things are looking pretty good in New England. They're going to be taking on the Tennessee Titans, who finally fired their head coach in Brian Callahan. You might be saying, Tom, it's week 7. What do you mean finally? Titans fans know. But this was something that needed to happen. Things were just not working in Tennessee. Cam Ward is getting absolutely obliterated behind that offensive line, and even though they have made a head coach shift, I don't think that's going to change anytime soon, and I still think the Titans are going to be a pretty bad team. But hey, they needed to look to the future, and I pray to God that it's not Matt Nagy. You know why? Because Titans fans, they don't deserve that. Because at this point, I'm pretty sure they'd give anything to get Mike Vrabel back.
It wasn't over for me. I waited for you for 7 years. Now it's too late.
I wrote you every day for a year.
You wrote me?
Yes.
But it has been a long season for the Titans, and we are not even halfway through the season. Tajay Spears was able to come back, so I'm curious to see how he's going to do as the season progresses. But ultimately here, I'm going to go with the Patriots to get the win. I think they're a better team. I think they're a more balanced team. And behind that offensive line, even though I really like Cam Ward, I don't think he's going to find a ton of success. So because of that, I'm going with the Patriots and Mike Vrabel to get his revenge game win. And for the Titans, yeah, the season's not almost over. I'm sorry, I got nothing for you. Following that, you got an AFC West showdown between the Las Vegas Raiders and the Kansas City Chiefs. The Raiders, you did it! You encountered a team that was worse than you, and that was the Tennessee Titans. Again, sorry, Titans fans. But the Raiders were able to take care of business. Ashton Genty having a good game. Geno Smith not turning the ball over too much. And overall, things were looking pretty good. And when we're talking about the Raiders, of course, you have Max Crosby and that defensive front, which can get after the quarterback, but the Raiders' offensive line is just not good. Geno Smith has been turning the ball over way too much, and now they got to be taking on the Kansas City Chiefs. And not just the Chiefs, but Rashee Rice is also coming back this Sunday, which probably isn't too fair against this struggling Raiders team.
That's not fair.
Clause 3B, the proprietor reserves the right to be unfair.
Teacher's pet.
The Chiefs able to get a big-time win over the Detroit Lions this past Sunday night, and it was a big win. After losing to the Jaguars, they needed to rebound, and their defense was looking great. And even though the Lions secondary is all battered right now, the Chiefs offense was moving the ball pretty efficiently. Isaiah Pacheco was actually their leading rusher, which, you know, is a nice change of pace, and it's not Patrick Mahomes. But this is going to be a really interesting game to see what this Chiefs offense is going to look like. Now with Rashee Rice back, it definitely looked better when Xavier Worthy came back, and now with their most dynamic wide receiver back in the lineup, yeah, I got to go with the Chiefs here. It's being played in Arrowhead. This could be a very long day, and the only hope is that maybe the Raiders can make like Christmas a couple years ago and get the upset, but I don't think it's happening. Then you got the Philadelphia Eagles taking on the Minnesota Vikings. The Eagles, woof. The last time that we saw them, they got their ass whooped by the New York Giants. Cam Scatterbo rushing for 3 touchdowns, and even though I know they didn't have Jalen Carter, not a good look for that Eagles defense. Jackson Dart looked really good, and for the Eagles, now losing 2 straight against the Broncos and now Giants, things are not looking too good. And I know that Eagles fans are just getting angrier and angrier watching Kevin Patullo ruin their Super Bowl winning offense from last season.
All of this falling apart like this is on you. Wow. We had a good thing, you stupid son of a bitch.
They're going to be taking on the Minnesota Vikings, who got to enjoy themselves a bye week last week. We're still going to see who is going to play at QB this upcoming Sunday, whether it's going to be J.J. McCarthy or Carson Wentz. Regardless, I think the Vikings are playing the Eagles at the right time. And while the Vikings are still dealing with some injuries, hopefully the bye week allows some of these guys to come back. And what I'm really curious to see is this Brian Flores defense against this offensive line for the Eagles, who has not looked as good as they have in seasons past. And I think what makes this a really intriguing game is that Saquon Barkley has not been able to get it going on the ground. And they're going up against a kind of middle-of-the-road Vikings run defense. But the Vikings secondary has actually been playing pretty darn good. Their pass defense is one of the best in the NFL. And Jalen Hurts, well, he's not even throwing the ball a whole lot. And so if they're able to get Saquon Barkley going, I think the Eagles could pull off a win here. Again, it's kind of tough to predict who is going to win this game, especially not knowing who the Vikings quarterback is going to be. This could be the Carson Wentz revenge game, and I don't doubt that the Vikings could potentially get a win. However, if Jalen Carter is back for Philadelphia, I think that defense is going to take a big step forward. And so because of that, I am going to go with the Eagles to get the win. Maybe this is Saquon's breakout game, and if not, well, then the Vikings can finally get revenge on the Eagles for all those Monday night games when they had Kirk Cousins. Then, you got the Carolina Panthers taking on the New Jersey Jets. The Panthers winning 2 straight games. Rico Dowdle having the games of his life over these past 2 weeks. They were able to get a game-winning field goal against the Dallas Cowboys last week. And for Panthers fans, honestly, I'm just freaking happy for them, man. If they win this week, they would be above 500 for the first time since 2021.
Oh my gosh, I never thought this moment would come. This is the happiest day of my life.
I don't know if I'm happier for Panthers fans after that stat or sadder. But the Panthers getting a big-time win over the Dallas Cowboys last week, and you got to be impressed with the way that they played. Their defense made key stops when they needed to, and I know George Pickens was able to tear apart that secondary, but they were able to make stops when the Cowboys defense was not, and Bryce Young was playing pretty well, and of course Rico Dowdle, he is just amazing right now. They're going to be taking on the Jets, who... yeah, they were in London this past Sunday, and they probably will never get invited back. They had negative 10 passing yards total after all the sacks that Justin Fields took, which was a total of 9 from that Broncos pass rush. And the Jets, yeah, they're the final team to not win a game this NFL season, and it's just been tough going. Breece Hall hasn't looked good, the offensive line hasn't been great, and while the defense is definitely not terrible, things are just not going well in New Jersey. And now taking a look at this game, I know I'm going to put it out there, I wouldn't be surprised if the Jets get their first win. If Breece Hall is able to get things going, then maybe I can see the Jets pulling off an upset here. However, I got to stick with the hot team, and that is the Carolina Panthers. The Jets are another team that they don't have the best run defense this year, and if Rico Dowdle's able to repeat what he's been doing these past couple of weeks, I think that the Panthers should be able to win this game. And so even though Bryce Young might have a hard time this Sunday, the fact that they can actually rely on a ground game is going to help significantly. The only thing they got to look out for is that MetLife Field. But here, I'm going to go with the Panthers to get another win. And for the Jets, things are not going to get better soon. Then you got a pretty damn interesting game in the New York Giants taking on the Denver Broncos. The Giants, we just talked about them, had a spectacular win over the Philadelphia Eagles last Thursday. You have Jackson Dart, who is playing his ass off. Cam Skattebo is running through defenses, walls, and yeah, I'm just worried about him, man. Like, I hope he's okay. But the Giants, after this past Thursday, seem to have a bit of optimism now for the rest of the season. No, there's no Malik Neighbors. No, their offensive line is not fantastic, but the Giants are a scrappy football team with 2 young rookies and a pretty good defensive line. Yeah, that's a recipe that can win them a few games. They're going to be taking on the Denver Broncos, who, oh boy, that was freaking close. When you're talking about the Jets not playing well, the Broncos offense, they were not doing well either. However, that Broncos defense was spectacular, and that's been one of the consistent things for Denver this entire season. Their pass rush is absolutely outstanding. Truly, they are like the best in football right now, and the fact that the Broncos can get after just about any opposing quarterback, that is going to keep them in a lot of games, even if their offense is trailing behind a bit. I mean, hell, you look at that Eagles game where they were down the entirety of that game, and in that fourth quarter, Bo Nix was able to come alive, and hey, you got to win. And so even though things are going great with the Broncos defense, their offense is hopefully going to start ascending sometime soon. I know a lot of Broncos fans aren't very happy with their special teams coach, Rizzy.
We are the agents of chaos. Stop teasing him.
Tim, you clogged the toilet again. Stop putting baby wipes in the toilet.
Shut up.
But I think this is a really fun matchup. Being played in Denver, I think, gives the Broncos a pretty significant advantage here. But Cam Skattebo is one of those guys that I don't think any defense wants to tackle at the moment because he just keeps those legs churning and he just wants to hit you. And I think as the weather gets colder, this is going to be even more of an advantage for the Giants. However, taking a look at that Broncos defense, I think they'll be able to get after Jackson Dart, especially behind that offensive line. So even if they're able to run the ball a little bit with Cam Scatterbo. I believe in the Broncos defense to get it done. I will say I don't believe in the Broncos offense against this Giants defensive front. This could be a very, very low scoring game that can come down to the wire. But I'm going to take the Broncos defense here to give them the win. Maybe they can force some turnovers or just limit what Dart and Scatterbo can do. And so because of that, I'm giving the Broncos another win, and they will have defeated MetLife once and for all after this week. Then, what could be one of the games of the week, you got the Indianapolis Colts taking on the LA Chargers. The Colts, it was a close one against the Arizona Cardinals. I'll give them that. However, Jonathan Taylor has been playing spectacularly well. Indiana Jones is playing efficient football. We talk about that defense every single week, and while Jacoby Brissett was able to lead the Cardinals to a good amount of points, you got to talk about the improvements that the Colts have done this season. It really is something, and considering I thought they were going to be one of the worst teams in the league heading into this season, yeah, it's just such a great story, man. But the Colts, they're a pretty damn solid football team. They're going to be taking on the LA Chargers, who got away with a close one this past Sunday against the Miami Dolphins.
We're coming in too hot. Another happy landing.
And kudos to the Chargers, man. Yes, it is against the Dolphins, who don't have a defense, and they are not a great team this year. But considering all the injuries that the Chargers have dealt with, whether it's Omarion Hampton, Najee Harris, Joe Alt, Rashawn Slater, Quentin Johnston's been banged up, they are still finding ways to win football games. And for the Chargers, as they're battling to try and win the AFC West, the fact that they are getting these gritty wins, it counts for something, man. And considering this season has been absolutely hectic, you got to give them a lot of credit. Besides that, without their two starting running backs, the Chargers were able to still get 124 yards on the ground with Vidal, so a really nice performance from him. And taking on the Colts this week, I really think it's going to be whoever can establish the run. The Colts have a pretty solid run defense this year, while the Chargers are in the bottom half of the league, going up against one of the best running backs this season in Jonathan Taylor. Additionally, the Chargers could have Joe Alt back this week, which would be a huge boost to that offensive line. But here, I am going to go with Indianapolis to sneak away a win here. I think if they're able to run the ball with Jonathan Taylor efficiently and control the clock, they should be able to get the win. On top of that, the Chargers, while they did have a really nice rushing performance last week against the Dolphins really don't have a great defense, and the Colts are definitely a step up from what Miami has. So because of that, I am going to go with the Colts to get the win. While I would not be surprised if the Chargers were able to pull it out, I got to go with Indiana Jones and get one step closer to making Harrison Ford proud. Following that, you got an NFC East matchup between the Washington Commanders and the Dallas Cowboys. Both these teams, coming away with some embarrassing losses this past week. The Commanders giving that game away against the Chicago Bears, quite literally. Jaden Daniels fumbling the handoff late in the fourth quarter, ultimately giving the Bears the win as they were able to kick a game winner with Jake Moody. And for the Commanders, it has been a very up and down season. Of course, Jaden Daniels has been injured for a good amount of it, but he looked really good the week prior. And this past week, things just seem to struggle. And when Scary Terry is out and they're not able to get Wild Bill going on the ground, they become a little bit one-dimensional, and Jaden Daniels is forced to do just about everything himself. They're going to be taking on the Dallas Cowboys, who also lost to a game-winning field goal, but against the Carolina Panthers. And the Cowboys, it's really unfortunate because Dak is having a phenomenal season. He's not turning the ball over. He's having 3 touchdown performances almost every single week. And on top of that, Javonte Williams has been pretty darn solid throughout the entire season. I know they really couldn't get him going last week, but George Pickens then had himself a really great game and had over 165 yards. And so I feel like for the Cowboys, they're kind of just like this year's Cincinnati Bengals if they still had Joe Burrow. Their defense is absolutely atrocious. And so because of that, the Cowboys are constantly having to put up more and more points to try and win this game. And so this just seems like a game that both teams need to win. But honestly, both of these run defenses are awful, so expect a whole lot of this on Sunday.
And so you just ran.
Yeah.
And so looking at this game, I was originally going to pick the Cowboys because I think their offense is a little bit more explosive than the Commanders this season. However, Scary Terry is practicing today as of recording this video, and I think that would be an enormous boost for this Commanders offense. And so while both run defenses are not great, I know the Commanders secondary is at least a little bit better than what the Cowboys are putting out right now, as the Cowboys are ranked dead last in passing yards allowed per game. And so because of that, I am going to go with the Commanders to get the win if they're able to establish the run, which again, they should be able to against the Cowboys. And Scary Terry is back, giving them a dynamic receiver for Jaden Daniels to throw to. I think they should be able to win. However, I expect a high-scoring game here. Wouldn't be surprised if the Cowboys win, but I'm going with Wildflower so he can be happy one more week. Then, all right, Tom, I know you feel like garbage, but do you have one more Green Bay mother-loving Packer in you? You got the Green Bay mother-loving Packers taking on the Arizona Cardinals. Yeah, I'm gonna die. The Packers, they were able to get a win over the Cincinnati Bengals this past Sunday. For 3/4 of that game, the Packers looked to be in control. Unfortunately, the Bengals started roaring on back. Jamar Chase had that phenomenal touchdown, and that game got pretty close, within 6 at one point. However, the offense was able to put them away, score 17 in the fourth quarter, and even though Jordan Love threw an interception on his first drive, he played really well throughout the rest of that game, and has been really damn good this season. On top of that, the Packers seem to have found their run game, or at least for 1 week, as Josh Jacobs was able to get 2 touchdowns and had a really nice day on the ground. And I know Packers fans really need a stress-free win this upcoming Sunday, but every single Cardinals game this season has been decided by 1 possession.
Really? Here we go. Buckle up. It's going to be a bumpy one.
And that rang true this past Sunday as they were able to go toe-to-toe with the Indianapolis Colts. Jacoby Brissett filling in for an injured Kyler Murray, and he was able to operate that offense pretty darn well. Maybe too well. Yeah, we need to start talking about Kyler Murray. But in terms of the Cardinals, they just feel like a very average team this year. While their defense has definitely improved this season, the fact that they have both of their starting running backs out, yeah, that makes things very difficult on the ground and makes them very one-dimensional. And as we mentioned with Brissett, he did a very fine job against the Indianapolis Colts, and we'll see if it's going to be Brissett or Murray who's going to be playing against the Packers. But either way, it just feels like this offense is not reaching its full potential. They definitely have some playmakers, but with the mix of injuries and on top of that, QB inconsistencies, yeah, the Cardinals are just not a great football team this season. All that being said, with the Cardinals unable to get a ground game going, the Packers have the best run defense right now in the NFL, and the Cardinals are near the bottom half of that list. And so if Josh Jacobs is able to get things going, I know Zach Tom is dealing with an injury and he wasn't practicing today after he was in a lot of pain after Sunday's game. So we'll see if those run lanes are going to be open. Devontae Wyatt seems to be trending in the right direction, which is definitely a positive because they miss him on that defense. But here, I am going to go with the Packers to get the win. I'm hoping that pass rush can really come to life and get after Brissett or Kyler Murray, whoever's going to wind up playing this Sunday. And I think the Packers offense is going to be able to score on this Cardinals defense. So because of that, I'm going with the Packers to get a win. And hopefully it's by 2 scores so my hair doesn't turn any more gray. Then you got the Atlanta Falcons taking on the San Francisco 49ers. The Falcons coming away with their biggest win of the season, knocking off the Buffalo Bills at home on Monday Night Football. Bijan Robinson rushing for over 180 yards. Michael Penix played well. The defense was getting after Josh Allen. James Cook couldn't do a whole lot. And the Falcons right now, they seem to be a pretty damn solid team. And I think one of the reasons why they're finding so much success is because of their defense. They're not only able to stop the run, their secondary has been playing well, and they're actually able to get after the quarterback, which has been a problem these past few seasons. And so because of that, the Falcons are finding some early success, just not against the Panthers. They're going to be taking on the San Francisco 49ers, who also lost Fred Warner this past Sunday. So that list of injuries gets even more devastating. And for the 49ers, man, like at some point, you just got to feel terrible for them. Last year, that IR list was 20 pages long, and this year, they are losing some key pieces. And especially on the defense, which has been pretty damn good this season, now losing Bosa and Warner is not doing them any favors. And even though they should get healthier on offense as the season goes along, yeah, it's just hard not to see the 49ers ceiling at this point with all those major injuries. And taking a look at this game, if the 49ers were healthy, I think you got one of the best games this upcoming weekend. However, with all the injuries that we're talking about and the Falcons kind of going through this resurgence a little bit, I think they should be able to run the football on this 49ers defense. On top of that, if Michael Penix doesn't turn the ball over, I think the Falcons should be able to get a win. The 49ers were definitely fighting against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this past Sunday, and it was a valiant effort, but eventually the Buccaneers were able to pull away. I see a similar thing happening this Sunday night. And so because of that, I'm going with Atlanta to get another big win. And we'll see if those Falcons can keep on rising up. Then, because everybody loves this, we got another doubleheader on Monday Night Football. The first one, you got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers taking on the Detroit Lions. The Buccaneers, somehow, some way, without their wide receiver 1, 2, 3, 4, with their offensive line in tatters, without their running backs, they are still able to win football games. Baker Mayfield playing like an MVP right now with only 1 loss under his belt. I mean, there have been times almost every single week where Baker Mayfield himself is keeping that team afloat, dealing with all those injuries. On top of that, their defense, while not the very best this year, they are opportunistic and are finding ways to win football games and making those game-changing plays, whether it's late turnovers, and that has made the difference and is just one of the reasons why the Buccaneers have been very successful this season. They're going to be taking on another battered and bruised team, and that is the Detroit Lions. The Lions, they just got outplayed on Sunday night, and we can talk about officiating all we want, but their secondary is just beat to pieces right now. And for the Lions, that bye week cannot come soon enough, because if they're able to get healthy, especially in the secondary, that defense should be much, much better, because Aiden Hutchinson is still playing his ass off. And when it comes to the offense, when they're able to get Montgomery and Gibbs going, that is an explosive offense. However, going up against that good Chiefs defense, they were just not able to make plays as the game went along. And ultimately, whether it was turnover on downs or they just had to wind up punting the ball away, they were not able to get the win. Now, on top of that, not only is their secondary beat up, but Brian Branch is also suspended for a week, which is not going to make their secondary any better. However, some good news for Detroit is you could start getting some guys back from injury. I know there's some guys who are already questionable, but McNeil could be coming back, which would be a huge boost to that defense. And taking a look at this game being played in Detroit, I think it could go either way. And if any of the Buccaneers receivers were healthy, I might pick the Buccaneers to win this game decisively. Unfortunately for them, they don't have Ibuka, they don't have Godwin, and they don't have Bucky Irving in the backfield. Mike Evans could return to practice this week, which definitely would help the Buccaneers. However, I am going to go with the Detroit Lions to get the win here. I do think that pass rush should be able to get after Baker Mayfield, and I think that might be the deciding factor. So here, being played at Ford Field, it is going to be a very loud environment, and even though Baker Mayfield has been pulling off magic, and I don't feel really great picking against him, I'm going to go with Detroit to get a bounce-back win, and if not, that works for me too. And then finally, you got the Houston Texans taking on the Seattle Seahawks. The Texans, they got to enjoy themselves a bye week as they watched the Jaguars lose, the Titans fire their head coach, but the Colts won, so they're not completely out of the woods yet. But the last time that we saw the Texans, their offense has been looking better. They were able to put up points. Yes, they beat up on a bad Ravens team, but hey, just having the ability to do so and their fan base able to see it with their own eyes, hopefully, this means that offense can continue to progress as the season goes along. They're going to be taking on the Seattle Seahawks, who had a big win against the Jacksonville Jaguars last week. And after sacking Trevor Lawrence 7 times, now that Seahawks defense is looking at that Texans offensive line.
Meat's back on the menu, boys!
But the Seahawks, they've been dealing with their own injuries in the secondary, and their defensive line definitely more than made up for that last Sunday against the Jaguars. But the real story has been about the Seahawks offense. Their offensive line is doing a great job protecting Sam Darnold. He is playing really good football, and even though they're not able to always get that run game going, JSN is one of the best wide receivers in the NFL this season. And even if they're just throwing the ball solely to him, hey, it's working enough to beat football teams. And taking a look at this game, I think the Seahawks are going to have a tougher time moving the ball against this Texans defense. And so that is going to be a really exciting chess match. On top of that, we already mentioned that D-line against the Texans O-line seems like a major mismatch. And so CJ Stroud may be running for his life the entire game. And so being played in Seattle, I am going to go with the Seahawks to get the win here. I think they've just put more on paper and throughout games that they can be a pretty damn good football team. And most importantly, they're good on both sides of the ball. While the Texans in their last 2 games have looked good on offense, I just think the Seahawks are a step above them. And so because of that, I'm going with Seattle to get a big time win. And Strouds, please don't blow up my car. But let me know what you think down in the comments below. How do you see things shaking out in week 7? Apologies for my not as usual enthusiastic and energetic persona. I just feel like poo-poo garbage, so I'm going to go lay down now. But yeah, let me know who you think is going to win this week. You know, I saw me at TomGrossiComedy.com, and a big shout out and thank you to all the Patreon and YouTube members for supporting this channel. And thank you so much for watching. I'm Tom Grossi. And as always, go Pat, go.